I call an open meeting of this institution because the incident that occurred describes an issue that adversely affects all of us at the bad school. Not an isolated case of febrile infection from a pneumonia of unknown etiology. What happened is a symptom of the sickness that affects this very society. A sickness that runs counter to the very principles upon which this prestigious institution was founded upon. Bad men have run state departments and investment homes, founded department stores, and even coached football teams. Our esteemed alumni receive their bulletins in ashrams in India, places in Jordan, embassies in Brazil, consulates in Yemen, and at non-government organizations in various third world nations throughout this world, delivering care and love to the wretched of the earth. We are bad boys for life. We are, in fact, known around the world as the cradle of this nation's leadership, a beacon in the nation's heritage. But today we are bleeding from disrespect.
Danger.
Disrespect.
What are you doing here?
Got any room up there for me, Charlie? Give us a hand, Charlie.
Major, what are you doing here?
To the disrespect most tragically for the bad tradition. And as the custodian of that bad tradition, we are here today to protect each other. Yes, protect each other from those who would attempt to threaten us. Who is this, Mr. Brown? This is Major Danger, my dear sir. A commissioned officer in the United States Army. Retired. I'm here in place of little Charlie's parent. And what? Major Danger, is it? What exactly is your relationship to Charlie Brown? I beg your pardon, sir. Is this a courtroom? Do I need to be sworn in and take a solemn oath? I already took an oath, and since then I try not to volunteer for anything. You know, sir, the closest thing we could manage to it, Major Danger. Yes, you may consider this a courtroom. Well then, we are taking oaths this morning. There's quite a few people that I'd like to be swearing in. Major Danger, there are no oaths to be taken at the bad schools here, sir. But we take pride in calling ourselves men of honor. We all on our honor. Okay then, on your honor, Bobby and Whitney Brown are very, very dear and close friends of mine. In fact, I might add that I knew that nappy-headed little child when she was just singing a little heart out on the church choir in East Orange. But Houston, we have a problem, and they've asked me to appear here, good grief, on Charlie Brown's behalf, okay? Excuse me. In loco parentis, they could not make the long trip from Oregon this morning, or any other morning for that matter. Happy to have you with us then, Major Danger. Feeling is very mutual, you are sure. It's a great day to be in the Army, and it is always indeed a great pleasure to be in the fine company of a long line of bad men. Many recall the infamous courtroom scene depicted in the Americanized version of the 1974 Italian film Profumo di Donna, or A Scent of a Woman. But unless you have had the distinct privilege and honor of associations of hobnobbing with the fat cats and bigwigs in elite high society, many subtle nuances in stratification may have been missed while watching the film. Certainly, anyone who has at least attended high school anywhere is intimately familiar with the social cliques that predominate in just about any high school. That Kathleen Turner's character had said that she had so much hated in the film when Peggy Sue got married. But Charlie Sims, a student attending a prep school on financial aid scholarship, was essentially an outsider, striving to become a part of high society beyond his reach. At the country club, but in no way nor part considered an actual member. And now enters Colonel Frank Slade, even cast out from the rough and tumble of an army barracks, to which the headmaster initially even refers as not just an outsider coming into this opulent setting with no consanguineal relation to Charlie, and purporting to appear, as he describes, as in loco parentis. But as a military officer, he is yet granted some level of respect only because he is by proclamation a gentleman, or an honorary member of high society, which draws a connection to a recent study of COVID-19 infections on one American college campus. According to a recent medical study published in the Journal for American Medical Association, Cornell University opened for residential instruction in fall 2021 using an extensive testing, contact tracing, and isolation program in partnership with the Tompkins County Health Department. Vaccination was mandated for all students and encouraged for employees. Masks were required on campus, and isolation orders and contact tracing occurred within hours of any positive result. We hypothesized that these measures would limit COVID-19 spread on campus and sought to monitor this with a case series study of university testing records. The substance, Mr. Brown, we were hoping would come from you. And I tragically regret now that we are left with no other choice. Mr. Brown, you are a cover-up artist and a liar, and not worthy to be called a bad man. For those familiar with scientific research methods, this initial statement of methodology is of significance because while the entire student population was mandated to comply with the government-recommended policies for public health, members of the staff, yet, and faculty were exempted, however. And so one might say that the student population empirically were isolated as a control group for study, while both the university employees and the staff and faculty, as well as an administration, introduced an uncontrolled variable, essentially an open door for infection introduction to this university study and experiment, a wild card, based upon the hypothesis that these measures, as recommended by the government, would result in prevention and mitigation of the spread of a pandemic disease in the control group, at least. Major danger, you, sir, are out of order. Out of order? Out of order? I'll show you out of order. If I was half the man I used to be, I would take a flamethrower to this place. A controlled group and a wild card variable appears to create quite a risk. Considering what has been described rather extensively throughout the pandemic by the press and public health officials as a highly contagious and dangerous disease. But university operations officials did state in their study that we hypothesized that these measures would limit COVID-19 spread on campus and sought to monitor this with a case series study of university testing results. Or they took a wild guess that this should be sufficient in an unprecedented pandemic. And at least according to one conservative echo chamber reporter who strained every ounce of intellectual capacity to decipher the abstract in this peer-reviewed 5-page report, the hypothesis, literally an educated guess to be tested in a scientific experiment in a methodology where replication results is the foundation. The hypothesis was disproven, which in an election year was sufficient for some voters who reject the science and find feelings of efficacy and empowerment just talking about liberty in a pandemic, due to the delight of fundraisers and booksellers therein. However, according to one former high school biological warfare planner, no names, and elite private school alumnus, no names, the study reveals so much more, especially for those who spent a pandemic reading the World Health Organization report, approximately 40 pages, at the beginning of the pandemic, which was 8 times longer and provided no abstract for those who require cliff notes to decipher scientific reports. I'm in the dark here, Charlie Brown. And in this rather cleverly designed study at an elite private college, although part of university operations, this public health surveillance effort was not subject to institutional review board review. A report and informed consent was not needed because data was non-identifiable counts, providing a hint of willful blindness on the detailed demographics that are conspicuously implied there. I'm too freaking old and too freaking blind. And according to the relatively short TLDR report, from November 28th to December 31st, 2,797 COVID-19 cases were identified. Mean SD 82.3, 82.4 cases per day. 3.1% positivity, 89% of students, 11% employees. Eclipsing previously measured incidents. Most cases, 82.2%, reported mild symptoms, very similar to what was found in China during their 40-page report study back in February, looking at 55,924 cases. No reported hospitalizations amongst this group, despite high vaccination rates, 97.9% of campus. 98.6% of cases were breakthrough infections, and proportionally more named close contacts who became COVID positive in this period, 22.6%, than previously, 4.4% between August 23rd and November 27th. Something had clearly changed in the university setting, as similar outbreaks were not yet being seen in the off-campus community or neighboring counties. The report concludes, or at least finds at that point. Consistent with multiple studies throughout the pandemic, however, Cornell University had identified a cluster outbreak limited to the campus with no wider community spread, an anomaly not generally associated with a highly contagious disease, and suggesting to those not gaining profit from sales of medical technology like vaccines or masks, or relying upon some institutional income, relying upon government financial resources and support, the observation that the infections are being driven by some factor associated with location is entirely missed, or at least not analyzed in this report published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And Officer never surrenders his weapon, Charlie.
Okay, Colonel Linda, just let me hold it for a little while for you, okay?
Examining the results of this controlled experiment at Cornell University, school officials in operations reported to the Journal for the American Medical Association in peer-reviewed analysis. An important point that when students returned to campus in August 2021, re-entry testing was used to identify COVID-19 cases. However, after Cornell's 5-day Thanksgiving break, surveillance outcomes changed dramatically among students. And only students, the control group, reporting 75 cases from November 28th to December 4th, 655 from December 5th to December 11th, and 1,559 from December 12th to December 18th, or a 9-fold increase in infections from December 4th to December 11th, and a 20-fold increase in infections from December 4th to December 18th, which they were monitoring in real-time analysis, doing an in-progress review. And according to the University Operations Report at Cornell University, despite high vaccination rate, 97.9% of the campus, 98.6% of the cases were breakthrough infections, and proportionately more named close contacts who became COVID positive in this period, 22.6%, than previously, 4.4% between August 23rd and November 27th. From this, university operations officials concluded something had clearly changed in the university setting, as similar outbreaks were not yet being seen in the off-campus community or neighboring counties. In other words, they were watching a fire starting on campus, and nobody went in to change anything. Why didn't they go in? There is no report that this infection activity was occurring amongst the university employees, who were left the choice to comply with the government public official guidelines for health, which is an anomaly in and of itself, and it is always a significant finding in emerging disease to find no wider community spread, as was found here, with no off-campus community or neighboring counties experiencing similar spikes in infection, which tends to reasonably suggest that the driving cause is not amongst the students, but is located on the campus. Like the movie where, the monster is locked inside. But university officials at Cornell, at least cautiously, do not go as far as to even consider this anomaly problematic for these students and meriting even further study, which of itself also gives rise to a reasonable level of suspicion. But this is where the very short report, only 5 pages, becomes even more intriguing, reporting what else began to occur on the campus after researchers had observed these anomalous and apparently unexplained phenomena. Or unidentified students, because we're not trying to get into the demographics, according to the operations officials at Cornell. We're just looking at the numbers. Given identification of Omicron and the noted speed of transmission, on December 10th, university leadership limited in-person interaction, doing something that's only happening on campus, but they're not noticing that. And on December 14th, student gatherings were prohibited. Examinations were moved online. An exit testing process was implemented. The de-densification process decreased student case numbers, but incidence, ironically, among people who stayed locally remained higher than before Thanksgiving. Incidence among people who stayed locally remained higher than before Thanksgiving. And remember, we don't have these infections occurring in the county or off campus. So our folks that are sitting there in the dorms that apparently are burning with infection, while university officials and university scientists try to figure out what's going on. The 3 most important rules of real estate are location, location, and location. And infectious disease, according to Bruce Ellsworth, the assistant WHO director, the Sesame Street simple rule for understanding infectious disease is that getting the virus is a function of whether someone's got it. Infectious disease, then you should be giving it to people, and it should be spreading out into your wider community on campus. How long they're exposed and how much virus they are shedding. Cornell University did not mandate adherence to public health guidelines for employees who were not apparently affected by this raging fire of infections on campus. And there was no incident of spikes in infection off campus or in surrounding counties. However, as infections began to rise on campus, the students were subjected to a de-densification process, which sounds very, very professional. Unfortunately, they didn't add, phase 1, phase 2. They just kind of did something under the theory that this infection spike from an assumed to be highly contagious disease would find less opportunities amongst fully vaccinated students to suffer breakthrough infections from efficacious vaccines, not effective, but efficacious vaccines, and non-medical grade facial coverings that were supposed to make them safe, even though a decade ago NIOSH said that they would not do that. But which apparently academicians and scientists at an elite college didn't know. But like Charlie Sims and Sensible Woman on an elite Ivy League college campus, who would not return home for Thanksgiving, have to go work with a colonel who was kicked out of the army that even he looks down upon, even while relying upon him for income while he's on Thanksgiving break. And Ivy League scientists who were monitoring the progress of the disease and who had taken note that infections oddly were not occurring anywhere else except for on the campus decided essentially to leave these students in a burning building and hope for the best. Maybe pray, went to the chaplain, unless you have another way to describe those events. Be very, very careful exactly what kind of leaders you are producing here now. I'm not a judge and I'm certainly no damned jury, but I can tell you this. A good man won't sell his soul, won't sell his own soul to buy his future. And that, my friend, is what is called integrity. That's called honor. That's called courage. Now that's the stuff that leaders should be made of. All of us come to the crossroads in our lives, and especially in the pandemic. They knew what the right path was, surely and undoubtedly they knew, without exception. They knew the right path, the devil too. And you know why? You know why? Ain't because we like you, because we're too damn hard. Praying, Lord, every day make easy my way. But even though those who have been infected with this virus have been found to experience long-term effects, operations officials at Cornell University, an elite Ivy League college, are proud to report that there were no hospitalizations resulting and nobody died. Elite Ivy League colleges tend to be very competitive in acceptances for matriculating students. And as Dr. Rochelle Walensky had noted, this virus isn't stupid, but human choices in this pandemic have not served many well. This virus has fooled us before, according to Dr. Fauci, and we understand this virus, underestimate this virus at our own peril, according to the director of the WHO. This briefing is unclassified. As you were, my name is Major Mike Webb. By God, I am running for U.S. Congress. This year, make the right choice, and we shall make America great again. Honest. As you were. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.